For more than a week now, the Israeli military has bombed Gaza City's Shujayea neighbourhood. There are also reports of heavy fighting between Israeli forces and the Qassam Brigades. A Palestinian journalist in Gaza has documented the destruction in Shujayea.
We are here just a few meters away from a Shujaiya neighborhood. As you can see, relentless bombardment on the neighborhood. The neighborhood is subjected to extensive airstrikes from this early morning. Israeli ground forces entered the neighborhood from multiple directions, forcing civilians to displace, and the situation remains dire. Families still trapped in a Shujaiya neighborhood with unknown destiny. This is as close as we can get from a Shujaiya neighborhood.
Let's go now live to our correspondent Hani Mahmoud, who's in Deir, el-Balah, central Gaza for us. Hani, what's the latest you're hearing about the Israeli military operation in Shujayea?
Yes, Folly. Well, within the past half an hour, we received a report talking about Israeli military conducting what seemed to be a tactical withdrawal from limited parts of Shujaiya neighborhood, particularly to the northern part of this densely populated neighborhood and the southern western part of it, and repositioning itself in much more open areas. But the eastern part of the neighborhood is still under full military control, and this tactical withdrawal is coupled with heavy presence of quadcopters and surveillance drones that are covering the entire neighborhood, making it very difficult for people to move around or even to try to evacuate from the residential homes that they've been sheltering in, or they've been trapped inside, unable to leave. So far, this almost a week now, 7th day in a row, an ongoing trail of devastation and destruction of this particular residential neighborhood at the eastern part of Gaza City, where more people reported killed, with more as well in the streets. Paramedics, civil defense crew are unable to get inside and remove these bodies from the streets of Shujaiya neighborhood.
Yeah, and elsewhere, Israeli attacks continue, of course. What's happening in Khan Younis in the south with the latest Israeli evacuation order there? Have most people now left that eastern area of Khan Younis?
Yes, well, the Israeli military created very intimidating and difficult conditions for the residents of eastern part of Khan Younis city. These people just were making their way back to the remaining parts of their residential homes and areas and neighborhoods in the eastern part of the city after a month of destruction and devastation and relentless airstrikes. And as soon as they are trying to resettle there, the Israeli military started to carry out this air attacks on the eastern part of the city, claiming that they're dismantling infrastructure and facilities for Palestinian resistance and Palestinian fighting groups in the eastern part of the city, and doing so pushing hundreds and hundreds of families already displaced, traumatized more than one time in terms of displacement into the center and the western part of the city. The vast majority of people end up in the streets of Khan Younis. Now, just given their terrible experience in the past in terms of evacuation, in terms of the safe zones that the Israeli military pushed harder to make people believe that these areas are safe for them to evacuate to. But we have documented cases of people, as soon as they got to these safe zones, they were bombed and killed inside these areas. Particularly, and notorious among them is al-Mawasi evacuation, where people were targeted and killed inside their tents of this part. There's still more people moving into the center of the city. Some others decided to stay where they are because there's simply no safer place to go to.
Thank you, Hani, for the update. That's Al Jazeera's Hani Mahmoud live there in Deir el-Balah. Well, let's now speak to Mansour Shouman about this. He's a Gaza resident who lived through this war and the recent Israeli operations in Rafah and Khan Younis before moving to Qatar. Mansour, good to have you with us again on Al Jazeera. Let's start with what's happening in the south, in Khan Younis. It's an area you know very well. Israel has issued another evacuation order for Khan Younis. This is an area that they'd already bombed. There had been an operation there. They left on April 7th, but now they're back. First of all, when they issue the evacuation order to people, what happens? How much time do people have to leave before the actual operation begins?
A few hours. What happened in this case is that, as per the people I know on the ground, first of all, pamphlets were thrown on them from the sky. And then there will be rumors online through different WhatsApp groups that, the Israeli forces are going to enter the eastern part of Khan Younis, so you need to evacuate. And finally, they would see an official order come to them through speakerphones and through Facebook pages and internet pages of the different areas that they need to evacuate within the next hour or so that the Israelis can come and cause whatever they want to do. This is a never-ending scenario. It's happening not only in Khan Younis, but in other cities and locations across Gaza Strip. And unfortunately, no one is able to put a stop to this. So the people on the ground are suffering, Khan Younis is suffering, and we need to put an end to this as soon as possible.
As Hani, our correspondent, was telling us, some people, even with the evacuation orders, choose to stay because they have nowhere to go, nowhere safe at least they can go to.
Yes, not only nowhere safe, but there is, like you said, nowhere to go to, unfortunately. And even if they are safe, the areas that they're going to relocate to has no food or water or shelter for them and their children and their families. So a lot of people are saying, you know what? If we're going to die, let's die on our homes. Let's die where we need to be, unfortunately. It's very sad that we're watching this happening time and time again to different areas and nothing to be done about it.
Yeah. What does that suggest, the fact that this is happening time and time again in different areas which Israel had said they'd cleared in the past, like Shujayea in Gaza City, they'd been in there, like Khan Younis, there was an operation in there in April. They said they'd cleared it and then they go back. What does that suggest to you about the way they're conducting the war and the type of resistance they're facing from the Palestinian factions?
I think it's a genocidal way of conducting the war. It's a way of trying to exterminating the people, trying to uproot them from wherever they have been living for centuries, trying to ensure that civil unrest continues. And it's a kind of psychological warfare against the ordinary civilian on the ground in order for them not to feel safe and in order for them to completely submit to any demands made by the IDF moving forward in any of the negotiations that are happening.
But they're facing stiff resistance, it seems, from the Palestinian factions, whether in Khan Younis or Shujaiya.
Not only stiff, but escalating. And I think that's one of the things that is bothering the IDF, is that despite 9 months of putting these people through everything gruesome, the escalating violence continues from both sides. And I don't understand why don't the sane people in the Israeli side see this, that they're only making the Palestinian people stronger, and people who are on the neutral side are now starting to see that, no, we need to also fight back, right? Whether it be through peaceful or non-peaceful means.
Mansour, always good to talk to you. Thank you so much for joining us on Al Jazeera. Mansour Shouman, a Palestinian journalist and humanitarian on the News Hour with us.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.